Hey, how's it going, everybody? Champagne Sharks live stream, and this is Trevor T. You find me at Champagne Sharks or go to patreon.com/ Champagne Sharks to become a patron. But we have two people with us today that one I've spoken politics with at length in the past, and we've had a great time, and that's Margaret Kimberley. And the other one is Edward Ongweso Jr., who I've enjoyed on Twitter and had booked to come on to talk about the Mammoth Obama memoir. And Margaret, I know that you're a masochist like we are, so I want to know if you've been reading the memoir at all.
I've tried. I've read portions of it, and he just comes off as such a pompous ass. It's just hard. I'm sorry. First of all, having lived through most of it, it's not very little of it is newsworthy. It's not like some ancient history. So it's stuff I remember, and of course it's self-serving. Aren't
Oh, of course.
always? But he just comes across as being pompous, and I don't find it very useful, frankly. So I don't see myself going through all. Is it 700 pages? I doubt that will happen.
Okay. Well, if you change your mind, if you're sitting around, during COVID times and just feel like punishing yourself, like I'm going to, and you feel like doing it, you're welcome to come on that episode when we do it. I haven't even started the thing yet because each time I'm about to start it, somebody tweets something, and I'm just like, oh,
yeah. That's how it is, right? I've been following someone, I think Daniel Bessner, who's like live tweeting it in preparation of the review, and it's like new sections that I just kind of skimmed over where it's like, oh fuck. This is even worse.
Oh man, yeah. Daniel Bessner is good people. Yeah, he's been a guest of the show before, and I seen him. He's powering through it, but he's reading it like he's in a very meticulous, fine-toothed way. And I'm like, that's dedication to the.
Yeah, he was.
That is being a masochist. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he read. I think he just finished like every single book that Francis Fukuyama wrote.
Oh wow!
An essay. I could do that.
You know what's sad, man? I mean, I think it's social media. I used to be a fast reader, and I think I probably still am technically, but the stretches through which I can read have really evaporated. So stuff like what he's doing, that's really impressive, for sure. Because even when I try to read something, my attention span like drifts away, and it's horrible. But we want to talk about the Joe Biden and civil rights leader thing because I was so busy doing stuff today. I didn't get a chance to kind of chop everything up as precisely as I usually like to. Thanks, Phil Winter, for the donation. So we're gonna kind of play it by ear, but at the same time, I feel like so many people have seen this thing that I think most people have like watched it by now. But before we load up the video and do what we do, I'll give you guys a chance to just give your initial overall impressions of it. And we're also going to talk about the marvelous Margaret. Did you see Edward interacting with April Ryan?
Yes, it was hilarious. It was brilliant. It was great. She did not get your sarcasm at all. It was so funny. But that just tells you what a bubble people like that are in. These White House, she's had a name made for herself because Trump is mean to her, which is, and it's not appropriate the way he speaks to her or other Black journalists, obviously. But that's not a reason to, that should not be the way we see her. We should not judge her through that lens. And when she said, "Oh, it's so terrible," now what kind of journalist isn't happy to have a leak? I mean, I'm sorry. People have a meeting with the president-elect and the vice president-elect, and somebody leaks it. If you're a journalist, you should be like, "Oh my God, this is wonderful." But she's like, "Oh no, this is such a dreadful thing." So she told on herself and the role that she and others supposed journalists play.
But also, I'll say this, right? If that was a leak about Trump, Do you think she would have remotely said the same thing,
No.
or do you think anybody believes? Actually, we all know the answer to that. So let's switch that. Do you think anybody would believe that she wouldn't do that she would be totally different if it was a Trump leak? Like, who does she think she's fooling? I guess is my question.
Yeah, especially because just a few months ago, I mean, I talked with some people about it. They said they weren't leaks. It was different, like when Bob Woodward was recording Trump, right, and didn't release his recordings early enough. But when the recordings eventually came out, people were like, "You should have leaked it," like you should have done that. And to go from that to like some people trying to be like, well, any leaks are bad because you can't besmirch Biden before the Georgia runoffs is indicative. Like it's just it's fine if we do it. It's not fine if you do it.
It's like a whole different game now where people are barely even trying to look objective. Like, I'm not one of those people that has this romanticized view of the past and it's like, oh, journalism was once so noble. Like, as much as I think journalism and writing has kind of gone down the tubes thanks to capitalist concerns and clickbait and whatever, I do kind of try to have a pragmatic view of how things used to be. But I do think there was at least a concern about, I don't want to look like I'm a basic shill. And I feel like people just kind of don't even care. It's kind of understood. Everybody does it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone does it. So you can't judge me for it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we are shills. I mean, it's like that stupid, what do they call it? That White House correspondent dinner. I mean, it's a big shill-a-thon. And people criticize, oh my God, it's so terrible. Trump's not going to have it. I was like, thank God we don't have Trump at that stupid thing. They're supposed to be adversarial. I mean, at least to a degree. And they never always been presidents who curried favor and reporters who curried favor back. That's always been the case. But I think now, as you were saying, it is understood that is not just okay, but it's desirable. But it's why we don't know the things we're supposed to know.
And actually, before I continue, because I want to put up Edward's trolling on stage, but before we put it up, I didn't do this. I usually do, but can you guys just give people a quick background? We'll start with Margaret, but just give a quick background of who you are, where they could find you, and all that good stuff. Because I assume, based on the type of listenership we have, most people know who you are, but sometimes you never know.
Right. Sure. I am a columnist at blackagendareport.com. Every Wednesday, we have something new, commentary, articles, book reviews, etc. I'm the author of my first book is Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents, which was published earlier this year. And thanks so much for having me on, Trevor, to talk about that this spring. And I just wrote a new chapter for Biden, of course, so we need a new chapter.
Oh, nice.
I'm on Patreon, of course, patreon.com/Margaret Kimberley, and I'm on Twitter. My handle is Freedom Ride Blog.
Great. I noticed, I don't know if this was intentional on your part. It's kind of suspicious, but you didn't put Russian agent on there.
I am a Putinite.
Yeah, because when that whole thing came out, what was it? Proper or not, that propaganda or not thing. In the Washington Post, of all places, Black Agenda Report was put down as something to warn people about as Russian propaganda, right?
Yeah, we were. We were very pleased, actually, because it was proof that we're independent. And we're one of the few Black news sites that has original reporting. And we were the only one on the prop or not list. And it's not surprising, actually. I'm sure it was all the Washington Post doing, frankly. This list of sites and people who are allegedly too close to Russia. We have called out the Russiagate fraud. And that's one of the things I want to write about in the future. It was a tremendous lie. It did a lot of damage to the country. Their goal was to try to keep Trump from becoming president, which they failed at, and then to try to take away his legitimacy. and it's a long story, but I write about it quite a lot. So you can Google my name and Russiagate, and you'll see all the debunking I've tried to do for the past 4 years.
And Edward, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
So I'm a staff writer at Motherboard, which is Vice's technology and science section. I write about labor and tech there. I am also a co-host of This Machine Kills, which is a podcast about political economy of tech. We talk about international dimensions of it, labor dimensions, how it affects culture, imagination, politics of specific companies and their strategies. You can listen to us on pretty much anything. Also on Patreon at This Machine Kills Pod. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all that I'm working on right now.
And I have it ready. Let me just get it up. But while we are setting it up, if you don't mind, just giving people a backstory to the April Ryan thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, so there was a story that came out where journalists at the Intercept had obtained a recording of this meeting that Biden had with civil rights leaders, and in the process of it, journalists were accusing the Intercept journalists of being, stooges for Russia or propagandists, and saying that leaks of the president's private thoughts and words were dangerous to journalism and dangerous to democracy, and bad practice, pretty much. Even though that's what it runs on. So
yeah, and one of them was April Ryan, right. And April Ryan. Margaret, would you mind explaining to people who April Ryan is for people who don't know?
Sure. She's a White House correspondent. She has gained fame because of Donald Trump's rudeness to her, the way he is to other Black reporters, mostly Black women. But that's not the way we should see what she does. The fact that she says, who leaked this is, it's terrible. It's a bad thing. Reporters are supposed to like leaks. You should be.
Yeah, exactly.
You're supposed to say, oh my God, we got this inside view. Let me analyze it for you. But they are courtiers. And now that Democrats are back, she will be one of the Democratic Party scribes as a White House reporter, which is unfortunate.
Something that you just said, and actually I'm going to go back to something that you said a little bit before. When you first were bringing her up, you had to bring up, not saying that what Donald Trump said to her was, or treated her was right and it was wrong. And my first instinct was, of course you're not saying that. Why do you have to give that disclaimer? But then I remembered, oh no, this is hot take, bad faith response culture. Of course you have to say that. Like you have to give a disclaimer. Of course, I don't think how Donald Trump treated her is right before you go into a criticism of her blatant journalistic irresponsibility, because that's basically where people are reflexively going to go. Like, so are you saying that it's okay for Donald Trump to treat her the way he did, which has nothing to do with what she was saying in that moment of journalistic irresponsibility? So it's like, it's a shame, but I understand why you have to give that disclaimer. It's a statement of where we are in this, especially in this Twitterized mode of discourse that we're in today. But the other thing I wanted to say is, just now you used the word courtier, and I forgot about that word. I haven't thought about it in a long time, but it's a really good word. It's a very appropriate word. For some reason lately we've lapsed into the word shill, and that's when I use the most too. And I think that it's kind of become like the word simp, and that people have just broadened the meaning to include too much. And I think you're right. There's a very specific type of behavior that's happening here, and shill is almost too general. Like courtier is very much more precise and accurate word. And I wanted to ask Edward what he thinks about that, because you're the first person I've heard kind of use that word in this current context, and I think you might be onto something there. I think it's a much more appropriate one.
Yeah, I like the deployment of that word because in many ways, mass media inside of a capitalist system is just going to end up being flack for power and privilege, right? That comes with like allowing senior officials to anonymously leak stuff so that they can help shift or nudge narratives in certain ways that allow certain perspectives to not be questioned and certain perspectives to be ignored altogether. And that's like, in some ways, we could see that resembling maybe the way courtiers hang around the edge of power in a court, waiting for a chance to bask in it or waiting for a chance to participate in, minor squabbles or intrigue without actually, holding any power, getting close to holding power in of themselves, right? The game is mainly just to stay in the room, stay in the court. And I feel that way with a lot of the people who carry water, right, or do PR for powerful companies, powerful agencies, powerful people. They are mainly there to, bask in the glory of like being close to power, it feels like.
And there's this weird sense, to me at least, of a normalization of it where people kind of get it now. It's like there's a half-ass attempt to kind of pretend that's not what you are, but it's not very. They're not very passionate or putting a lot of effort into hiding it. It's a very half-hearted attempt to even pretend otherwise. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if it's just a type of incompetence that they're so bad at hiding it, or a sense that they just don't care who really knows, and they just figure everyone gets it. That's just the state that we're in. But yeah, I just feel like it's kind of transparent now, and I don't know if that's fully a good thing or not, that nobody even really cares about pretending otherwise.
Well, it's bad because people have got, you can get used to, you can become accustomed to something that shouldn't be taking place. Mm-hmm. So the fact that people are used to bad journalism or not real phony journalism is not a good thing. We've had, these retrenchments in the field, in the media, have been very bad. There used to be like bureaus all over the country and all over the world. The media, this was before media consolidation. I think all of these things have played a role. But I think the rightward political shift has put the media on the defensive, and people who were on the right wing are elevated. Then you have presidents like Obama was, who was a master at marketing. So he would, he pitched these stories to people. I remember when the story about the kill list came out, and it was so obvious reading the New York Times that they called the Obama White House called the New York Times and said, we got this story for you. I mean, they tried to back off later and say, well, Obama's not the one in charge of the killing, some other guy is. But, it was pretty clear that this was their way of getting buy-in for their foreign policy, of claiming that the U.S. president had the right to assassinate people, even U.S. citizens, and did so. So that's now Trump messed things up, because being Trump, he doesn't know how to make nice with anybody.
Yeah,
I'm sure they would have sucked up to him the way they did to other presidents just as much. But so yes, that's why we have these people who are very obviously they get to make a lot of money, they get to make the right friends, they get access, so they don't want to be adversarial, because then that means they won't have access. Now, there's any number of ways to report, but that tells you they don't really want to do real reporting either. So
yeah, I think access is a good term as well.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm sure, Edward, you see this working on Motherboard on Vice, but a lot of these right-wing reactionary types like to use the term access media for people who treat media and journalism as just a way to get access. And it's one of those terms, it's like virtue signaling, where when a term describes something real and describes it accurately, but the people who invented the term or are popularizing it are such jerks and abusing it that you hate to use the term or give them any credit. But I think access media, along with the courtier thing, are two good terms for how they behave.
Yeah, access journalism is definitely a real thing. This idea of like, there are certain journalists, there are certain outlets, there are certain agreements or arrangements where someone gets to talk to a CEO, someone gets to talk to a really prominent executive consistently, someone gets to get scoops or insights about stuff that's happening beforehand because they can be trusted to say the right thing about it, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
that's what it comes down to ultimately. And I think it is a huge problem, as y'all have been talking about. This idea that is fine and that the media should be anything other than adversarial and skeptical of everything that comes out of any sort of power system. Anytime a politician or a businessman or a businesswoman or anyone, opens their mouth, you should assume, there are lies coming out of it or try to figure out what's going on there. And losing that adversarial edge is like a huge blow, I think, and gives them way too much room when they already have so much power to begin with.
And somebody brought up something in the chat. iSound Info. I scrolled past. I think it was iSound Info, but he said the mask was fully off when Donna Brazile was caught sliding questions to Hillary Clinton during the campaign. But there was also Roland Martin in that as well. And it wasn't so much that they did it. I'm sure stuff like that's always happened, but that it kind of didn't really matter. That was the really interesting part. Like, there was a handful of people kind of screaming in the ether about, hey, this is messed up. But for the most part, the attitude was, hey, she's doing it for Hillary. That's fine. It was a very bizarre aspect of how little it mattered. And I think each time something like that happens, it just opens the door more and more for people to be like, I don't have to bother to hide this. There's not real consequences to this type of behavior,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, definitely. I think that there aren't really consequences. In fact, you're incentivized to do this sort of stuff because you get rewarded. You get a lot of the people who get the most. I mean, they're journalists, reporters, outlets, investigators who are doing amazing work and get accolades for that. But there's also a lot of people who are just reprinting copy from places, or maybe I think of like this exchange between Chomsky and Andrew Marr in the BBC, where Andrew Marr takes great offense with Chomsky saying the mass media in a capitalist system operates like as a propaganda model, on a propaganda model. And he's like, how can you think that I'm self-censoring? I believe everything I say. And he's like, yeah, of course you do, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be the one who would be trusted to go out there.
What you said is very deep. It sounds like it's very nuanced. It's very easy to underestimate, like how deep what you just said is. But basically, if I understand it correctly, I didn't watch it myself. I'm going off your paraphrasing, but what he's saying is they don't have to corrupt you and make you sell out. The screening process is such that you wouldn't even have gotten in the door if you weren't vetted for being amenable to what we want to push.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the screening process is pretty more or less intense, where it's like, usually to get certain jobs at certain outlets or places or to get access, right, you have to come from a background where you have enough comfort to be able to get in the door, right? You also have to have certain beliefs that are not going to render you antagonistic. You have to also be amicable and amenable to networking with certain groups and playing certain games in terms of career promotion or mobility upwards in the hierarchy and deferring to power, right? And all of that self-selects much in the way that, like, I think analogous examples like in the education system, grades and tests do confer knowledge or communicate knowledge about like whether you know the material and can recite it, but they're also like measures of obedience, right? The degree to which someone is going to be able to follow orders and follow a regiment is the way in which they're going to be able to succeed in very hierarchical systems in our society and in journalism or in mass media more generally, right? The higher up you go, the more those assumptions need to be baked in, because you're dealing with like power at that point, right?
Man.
Yeah, well, it's funny what you said about the BBC, because they literally had to be vetted by MI6. You weren't allowed to be, and I'm sure it's still true, to be a newsreader. I think that's their term in Britain, unless MI6 gave their seal of approval. So it was quite literally true.
Wow,
so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you had the wrong politics or something, well, you weren't going to get an opportunity. So, although it's funny with Chomsky, he's sometimes he's just a gatekeeper for liberals. So he says these, really on the money things, but now he's, Democrats are bust and you can't question it. But that's another story.
What's interesting? Like while we're talking tonight, a lot of people are making some good comments. So I'm just gonna throw some of them up, and then we're gonna get to what's on the screen after we put up some of these comments. Unlike Katie Halper has like actual assistants. I'm like a one-man show, like multitasking. So bear with me for a second. But someone said this. Vita said this. He says, "Ain't no consequences because they're helping powerful people." And I think something that used to happen is even if you were helping powerful people, I think powerful people used to at least want to not look like they were currying favors so much. So if you got kind of busted doing something, the powerful person might make you a fall guy, not because, they were more honest, powerful people back in the day, but they had to have an appearance of propriety. The people would kind of in the public opinion sphere have their head, but I think nowadays the people don't really care about the appearance. So it's like the powerful people don't really have to care about even pretending, to have a fall guy for something or someone to, that's my take. Someone, I mean, you guys can feel free to disagree, of course. Roland Martin danced with Hillary Clinton, and he was still fired from TV1, which is true. Like a lot of this stuff doesn't even guarantee you any safety a lot of the times, which is another sad thing. Like a lot of times you kind of sell yourself out, and it's not even for that great a brass ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it helps to be white, like if you're white and a man, usually it takes a lot to take down someone. I mean, like one recent example is just someone who's like on journalistic grounds fucked up, right? Was it Brian Williams who like lied about a helicopter trip he was in? And
lied about a lot of things, yeah,
he right, and that one, after a few months, if I remember correctly, got him like to issue an apology and then have him roll back his responsibility at the network. But it's like, okay, what does that mean? That means he's still getting like the 6 figures, right?
Yeah, exactly. Someone put, and I'm sorry this ends up taking Edward's face totally out of the picture, but I think a lot of journalists are starving artists. They don't make a lot of money in that profession, so when they're drafted, they go all out for the team that drags them up from the G League. But I mean, was journalism ever like a super high paying profession? Like, I think he's right, but I feel like it's not enough to explain the change. But maybe you guys have.
Well, first of all, there were more journalists. There were more people who could make a living in media. And so now it's like this rarity. It's like you found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you're able to make a living in media. So these positions are highly sought after. The media consolidation of Bill Clinton, I always feel the need to say that. There used to be hundreds of media companies in the country until his Communications Act. Now there are 6 companies. Most mass media belongs to the independents who are scrambling, and 6 companies. So what that does is it de-democratizes the field. And that means you get people from the same backgrounds, from the same schools, who know the same people, who have the same in. They are the ones, as opposed to these old school journalists. They start out as a copy boy and, work their way up, and maybe they went to journalism school, maybe they didn't. But now it's this cookie cutter of people with very conventional political views in a shrinking field that is by necessity going further to the right.
Something I'll ask too, right? I think what you're saying is very right, but I also think maybe it applies a little more to the white side of the equation. Like I picture this like a Venn diagram, right? Of the black people who end up in this position, or non-white people in general, and then there's the white people that end up in these positions. And there's, if it's a Venn diagram, there's a certain amount of overlap. Like for example, the credentials, the um, lukewarm, tepid political views. Like I think a lot of the stuff that you said overlaps with the black person. In that Venn diagram. But I think, for example, the nepotism, I feel like it's harder for the black person to kind of bank on that, father getting them this job or grandfather. So I think there's a way in which they have to almost tap dance a little bit harder to make up for that. And that's something I want to ask both of you in a way to set up this Ryan scenario, because um, the black people who are playing this game of trying to get called up from the G Leagues and cash in. In what ways are they similar to the white counterparts, and in which ways are they different?
Well, everything's always more tenuous for black people, Even when we allegedly make it, we still haven't made it. We don't have the family wealth to fall back on. We don't have those connections of friends and relatives who can bail us out. Our lives are just not the same. So we can scramble and get ourselves into these positions, and we're still black people, so we're going to be treated differently. If a black person fails like Brian Williams did, are they ever going to work again? Remember the woman who made up the story in the Washington Post and then ended up winning a Pulitzer Prize? She never worked again.
Yeah.
The guy who lied in the New York Times, his name escapes me, he never worked again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it's like for us.
Yeah, I think that is like a key point, and that the support networks are so key. From also in terms of like also giving you second chances. Like we get one and that's it. Whereas you can have a journalist who is white and they might have said reams of racist shit in their columns in the 90s, but they apologized in 2007, so it's okay for them to write. Or they plagiarized, but they just laid low for like 2 years and then they got like a column back again, right? Or they wrote reams of homophobic stuff, like this sort of it's a double standard, I think, that like you're held, you're given one chance and punished pretty severely for it. If you're poor, if you're black, but if you're well off, connected, white, then you have multiple chances to redeem yourself and are seen as, I think, redeemable inherently in a lot of the narratives that come up.
Yeah, let's see how fast Jeffrey Toobin comes back to see it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's gonna be like some redemption arc for him, if they'll try to make that happen, or he's just gone. I don't know.
I'm sure there will be. I mean, that guy had problems even before that. Like there were a lot of things that happened that were very clear indicators that that thing would eventually happen. And it didn't really matter at the end of the day. Sometimes people don't even apologize. Look at Andrew Sullivan. That guy has never even really apologized.
Never will. Yeah. In fact, I think he still will double down and say that he was right.
Yeah, and he was a columnist at the New York Magazine until recently. I think he had to leave on his own accord. Nobody ever forced him out. No one ever canceled him.
Nope. No, he makes quite a lot of money from. I think he's on Substack now and does very well for himself.
Yep. So I'm going to enlarge this and take all of us off the screen because I want to make sure people can see this in its entirety. But this was a masterpiece of shit posting and trolling. I was very impressed and jealous. I took notes, and I asked this last night on Katie Halper, so I'm repeating a question I asked Edward last night, but it's a new venue, new forum, and not everyone has saw what happened last night. But I had to ask him because he did the original shitpost trolling, which was masterful, and if I was in your position, I would have thought she would have just ignored it or blocked you, and maybe some other people might, jump in, like some low hanging fruit. But when she bit at the bait and, put it on the Summer Jam screen, like she put it in the Jumbotron, she quote retweeted it. Did you have a lot of the follow-ups on hand, or did you have to scramble to come up with the follow-ups? Because the follow-ups were just as masterful. And when I read it, I was wondering, did he like have 4 or 5 ready just in case like she bit the bait, or was he on the fly coming up with this brilliance?
Yeah, they were off the cuff because I sent off the first one and I was like, I think this is fine. And then I was like, no, I can get in like 2 more. I could just I could go wild with this and maybe people will see what I'm saying. I thought it was there were a lot of people who did not see that it was sarcasm, and I got a lot of angry mail from people telling me that I'm not a real journalist and trying to explain to me what journalism is. I also got a lot of people who agreed with me, and then when they realized it was sarcasm, got very angry. I also had some journalists who messaged me trying to egg me on to recommit to the bit and add 1 more, 2 more tweets to go really over the rails and see if she came back. Which I didn't. I think it was too late at that point.
Yeah. I think enough people were joining in that she kind of got it. And to her credit, she left the tweets up.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
Most people don't do that.
Yeah. I thought she was gonna delete them and then leave a snarky subtweet and just go. Yeah, but she just tried to laugh it off. She tweeted through it. And what was funny was I had invited Edward to the show at a future undetermined date to discuss the Obama book. And the first tweet, because, and this is a sad statement of society, because it's so kind of plausible for people to say that nowadays without shame. I was like, damn, did I make a mistake? What happened? did I misjudge? And then as you kept adding more, I was like, oh, okay, I see it's a bit, but that shows how plausible this thing was. And I'm gonna put it on the big screen now so you can contextualize it. Someone in the chat said April Ryan is going to get him. She's gonna call in the mafia. Hold on. So so she says actually, you know what? I don't have her tweet up, but basically she was what was her original tweet? I should put that up because that one is this is the quote tweet, but anyway, I'll let you describe right here. So he says it is irresponsible and sets a dangerous precedent for journalists covering the incoming administration to be able to use secretly recorded conversations in their stories. To parse out Biden's thoughts and anticipate his policy commitments, you must go through proper channels. And rereading it now, it's really obvious what a troll job this is and the sarcasm. But what was funny also is myself. I was on Clubhouse, the new social media app that's a voice chat.
Mm-hmm.
And some some black politicos were some of them who have worked in politics and in Washington, and who I assume might be political operatives. They started a room about Biden and civil rights people and reparations, and they started it. And in the room, there were at least 10 people making variations of what you tweeted here and what Ryan tweeted before. Sans irony, no bit, like straight up. And I was like, I wish I recorded this because I wanted to send it to somebody. It was like they went further than you did, Edward. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, some people do believe that. I think because April like the other bits of it too, which were like, oh, the only people you're allowed to talk to are like the press secretary, the spokespeople, senior officials, but you can't attribute them, and like if you don't, then it's dangerous because it makes people don't trust not trust the media, right? And there are people who believe that. There are people who believe like the job of the media is like to calm the public down. I mean, that's like I think that's a long going belief, or it was more, I think, more present or more said out loud, historically, like in the 40s or the 30s, that the point of the media or the point of liberals in the societies to help control the quell the herd, the public crowd and the masses, and one of the way you do that is you can't allow leaks, because that will make them get silly ideas in their head about what's going on.
Now, here's a question that I have, right, about this. I know that it's since come out. I've watched the video, most of it, not all of it. The whole hour and 40-minute video. Was it not out at the time that she tweeted this? Because she's kind of, and this is her original tweet. Then I'm gonna go back to yours. She tweeted this. This is what you quote tweeted. She tweeted, "The question is who leaked this and why." And I love that. That's the main question. That's the real point of outrage, right? So also, I am told by a rights leader. If it's such a weird term, a rights leader. It just sounds like a weird job. In that meeting, that Joe Biden, and this is the part I feel like people did not talk about enough. She tagged Joe Biden.
I love
why? She tagged Joe Biden, and I feel like she was tagging to say, "Look what I'm about to do for you. Keep this in mind later." Like, why did you need to tag Joe Biden into that? Is Joe Biden gonna hop into the thread and just start tweeting? He's not. You're doing that to get his attention. You're like, I've got to make sure, notice me, senpai. I got to make sure you see me and what I'm about to do. Joe Biden was being more passionate than defensive. Can't wait to hear what the Biden camp has to say. And wasn't the full video out at the time, or was it not out?
I think it was because the Intercept had like 15. They had commentary and about 15 minutes of it.
Okay.
The whole thing was out. I first saw it on the Intercept, and it was another day or so before I realized the whole thing was on YouTube.
Okay, because the Intercept put the whole thing on the article, but I wasn't sure if that was an update, like they revised it, or if the whole thing was always up there. So you're saying that, to your knowledge, it wasn't?
They put it up on the 11th is when it says on YouTube that the video was up.
Got it. Okay. So that makes sense. I'm sorry I cut you off, Margaret. Did you have more to say?
That's it. Okay. But I think it's her tweet is just so funny to me.
Oh, it's funny on so many levels.
It's like she's defending Biden, so we're already starting with this. I'm calling it Biden defense syndrome. He has to be defended, and her little. Tagging him, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Hint, hint. Tell me what.
And that's the part that I thought made the courtier terminology used so perfect, because that's just a courtier move.
Yeah. Oh, it is, and she's not even trying to. As to your point, she's not even trying to hide it. It's like, I'm not a independent journalist. I'm here for you. I'm here for Joe and Kamala.
Yeah, and you're not just any journalist. You're a White House correspondent. So we already see what 4 years of you is going to be like, for sure.
Yeah.
If you stay there for 4 years, because if you have your way, you'll be on the other side of the podium on you know, with a White House job. I'm guessing is what she's aiming for. Who knows? But yeah, I just found that really funny that she actually tagged him. That part I really love. But I also found it funny is that when the video did come out, which I'm glad you guys confirmed it wasn't out at the time. None of what she's saying is true. As in, yeah, it maybe was passionate, but it was 100% defensive. The extra context does not take away from the clips at all. I mean, you guys, if you feel differently about the extra context, let me know what you think. Do you feel the extra context changed the tenor of the clips in any way?
Not to me. It was like he was the thing I got out of it just viscerally was that he was rude. He
Yep.
was he didn't even bother with, going through the motions. I'm so glad to meet you and blah blah blah, and then leaves the meeting cursing under his breath. But he was like, nobody did this better than me. I'm the guy who's always loved black people, and let me tell you a story about my friend Bob, and Hispanics are going to be more of them than you. So it was typical Biden, actually. And
Yeah.
they've covered for him so much. He was always this mediocrity, always blurting out stuff. I always wondered if he was a drinker, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, he's always had a type of political Tourette's where he just blurts
Yes,
out
and
whatever anytime he wants.
right. So but they've been covering for him all these months, and but it's going to come out. I mean, he's going to, this was leaked, but we're going to see him up close a lot. And it can't be hidden anymore. But I think April Ryan and people like her are still going to cover for him.
Oh, for sure. And you know something else too is like even with Trump and with everybody gunning for it, it took a while for Trump to say something this bad after being elected. Like this is not even taking like the whole shithole country thing and all that. I think was probably the worst thing he said. It took a little while to get there. Like he's not even in office yet, and he's got the internet on fire for a couple of weeks during the election with the whole Charlemagne thing. That set the internet on fire for like a week, and both happened like during the election. Trump had the Mexican rapist things and so what and so forth and so forth. But I mean, I think Biden's like ahead compared to where Trump was at this stage of his presidential realities, which is amazing to me. I think it's going to be an amazing time for people who were worried about the bad thing about this return to quote unquote normalcy is the sideshow aspect of it's going to be gone, and the racial aspects going to be gone as far as juicy reporting or whatever. I think they spoke too soon. I think he might top Trump in these type of racial flubs.
Yeah, well, it's a racial jungle, right? It's a racial.
Yeah, his exact words. So you know what? Let me put back Edward's masterpiece, and while I'm putting it back up, I want to ask, what's the weirdest response result from this fallout that you've had since it's happened?
Someone with like a Malcolm X profile picture was attacking me and telling me that I'm no better than the people who want to defund the police. And I was like, well, hey, hold on. What are you saying? And they were like, I was like asking them how they reconcile their love of the cops with Malcolm X being the profile picture. And then they kept telling me to like read his letter from Mecca when he took his Hajj there. And I was like, there's nothing.
That's an incredible reach, and that's an impressive reach, not for being particularly well thought out, but just for being audaciously bad. Like that's like the audacity to try to reach like that is almost impressive.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I think really it's like stuff like that. It's just like weird replies where someone says something that they clearly have an axe to grind with, and it has nothing to do with like what I'm saying or thinking or the reality of what's going on. It's just like them kind of talking to whatever, to like an image of me that they have in their head, right? And ranting about it. Those are like the weirdest responses, I think.
So back to the screen caps. Also, I'm sure the people give you a hard time by having 6% bar.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
All the time. All
Yeah,
day.
I would have warned you about that. I get that grief all the time. Like, you know what I hate about it? No one ever compliments you when you have like a 96% bar. No one
Yeah.
says, "Hey, good job on that charge." Never, but
It's
you put a
hard
6%
to
bar. Yeah.
post all day and on like 5%. You know, it takes skill, and I feel like it should be praised for that. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're living in a danger zone and you're surviving, and you're doing masterful tweets on low battery bar. That should be praised, but no, people are Philistines. It'll be recognized as an art in the future,
One day.
and we'll all be long dead. People like me and you who have terrible battery management. But we put April Ryan's tweet up to contextualize what he was retweeting here, and so you took what she did and you just added like extras on it, and she just replied agreed. And I want to know, like, what went through your mind when you
Oh my god.
when she bit the bait?
Well, the second she took the bait, I just took pictures of everything. I was like, I could not believe it. I was debating whether to just like let it stand and share with my friends or double down or just like, you know, tweet it out. So I decided to just tweet it out because it's ridiculous, and I was worried that she would like realize
Yeah.
and delete it, because that's usually what people do. They in 5 minutes someone close to them is like, hey, you just got trolled, and they're like, oh fuck.
And what I like is she liked your tweet, and
Yeah, she liked every one of them. This one, the White House press secretary, the spokespeople for the president and the vice president, senior officials without attribution, and the president's public statements are all designed and responsible sources, all designated and responsible sources for information about the president's thoughts and intentions.
And you know what's funny? Like this right here, you know, like basically could be put in the mouth of a fascist, and it would horrify people.
Yeah.
You know, like if someone for Donald Trump put this exact paragraph up, you know, in response to something being blown up about Donald Trump, that people would be horrified, and rightfully so. But it kind of shows how where we're at now in the discourse. And I like this one here that she replied to too. And I'm also interested in looking at all the other people who agreed with her, like you know, I just
a lot of those people I know them, and they knew that I was
it was a bit.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, yeah, because the people who are agreeing with her kind of look like people who would know it's a bit. So I just like you know that it's just her, and then a bunch of people who are probably like shit posters themselves and stuff, liking it alongside her. Even though I'm sure probably some sincere people were mixed in, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure for sure.
There's, to this day, there are people arguing. I'm still getting notifications for people fighting about Bernie and what would have happened if this leaked with Bernie. And
forget about it.
I'm like, I've muted that shit because of I can't do with that.
Well, we all know that there was always this propaganda about Bernie to make sure black people didn't support him. You know, he called Obama a candidate and didn't say president, which was not true, or any number of things. That's why I should have known he would never get the nomination. They weren't going to allow it. But anyway.
I hope, you know, there's a twinkle in my eye for a short amount of time where I was like, damn, like even though they have all the cards, they can't stop them. And then they did. So.
Well, you know what's funny with Bernie, right? There was like I was never like blindly 100% like, you know, unquestionably into Bernie, but he was by far the person that I liked the most, and I was rooting for the most out of everybody that we got. And you know, same for you, like Margaret, where I remember you wrote some things that were, in my opinion, fairly, they were critical of Bernie, but fair. But it was like the worse and worse they treated him, the more and more I had to put a lot of stuff to the side, because I'm like, this is really, really ridiculous. Like this is the most outrageous behavior that I've seen in a while.
It tells you how I mean, it's propaganda. We were saying this about quoting Noam Chomsky. We have April Ryan's a propagandist. I mean, I think that's a good way to describe her and many of her colleagues. And it was clear that the establishment, meaning the rich people and corporations who decide who does and doesn't become president, they did not want Bernie Sanders. They said so all along, and then they made sure it was going to happen. And that meant and who gets rewarded? The chief propagandist against him, Neera Tanden. She's the one who ends up with the cushy White House job. It's like, good job, Neera. You made sure that progressives are going to be seen and not heard. Actually, not even seen. So yeah, it just I think people really, really need to accept this stuff, because even people on the left like to talk about we're a democracy and we have rights and we have a free press. We don't have a free press. We don't have a democracy. And you see the connection between the lack of democracy and the lack of a free press in the way this campaign was covered.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Thanks to everyone who's been donating as usual. Much appreciated. Yeah, revealing a contradiction between Biden's private thoughts and public statements is dangerous because it erodes public trust in the president, the office, and the media itself. And this is the one that I thought would really give it away, because by this point I had figured out that it was a troll, but and when I figured it out, I looked back at the earlier ones and I was like, oh my god, this is brilliant. But this one was like a contradiction between private thoughts and public statements. Revealing that contradiction is dangerous to the public. Is I was like, oh, I think he better overplayed his hand with this one. And then when you tweeted that she liked it, I was like, wow.
I know, that's the one. That's the one that I thought should have like given it away. If you make it to that one, it's like, what do you just sit down and think about what it's saying, right? The idea that if you figure out what someone really believes, the public will be hurt, and because you realize they're a liar,
Oh my god! And then this is the last one. She actually quote tweeted you, and this is pure Streisand effect. This is pure Streisand effect, because she really brought the attention on herself. She quote tweeted and said, "You hit the nail in the head, not even on the head." But you know what? I'll be gracious. Maybe that was autocorrect. This is not good at all. And yeah, that was.
I was kind of hoping she would say more. I was hoping she would like do a thread. That would have been like the piece de resistance. It's just like right on top of everything.
I have a strong feeling that maybe enough people started tweeting at her that stopped her. I think she totally was on the road to a thread. I think she totally was.
Yeah. She was. Somebody pulled her coattail. Someone said, April.
Look at their Twitter handle. I don't think you should be amplifying.
Yeah, that's how it makes it funnier is the Twitter handle. This is speaking of what we were talking about, how the media covered him. Bernie Sanders. Let me get it up on the screen. There we go. I remember this thing, right? When I saw this thing, I was laughing along with Seth Meyers, and I realized now, you know what? We were wrong, right? And tell me if you remember this clip. And I might not have it queued up perfectly, but Seth Meyers did a whole 12-minute segment on how Bernie Sanders' rise prompts media meltdown. I encourage anyone interested to look at the whole 12-minute clip, because there's a whole 12 minutes of just terrible reporting. But I remember this part was an example of where I realized some of their craziness in a weird way makes sense because we're following different rules. But right here. Also, tell me if the sound is playing.
Look at the combined percentages among the
is the sound playing?
They do much better than the progressive.
I'm back it up a little bit.
It's a bit low, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it up. Hold on.
Could be
Is this better?
Bernie Sanders may have freaked out the
okay,
most
so
votes in
here we
Iowa.
go.
They also created an elaborate mythology in their heads where Bernie was only winning because the so-called moderates were supposedly splitting the vote. And they kept insisting that if the moderates would just coalesce around one candidate, that candidate could beat Bernie.
Bernie Sanders may have
And I laughed at that, but the reason they were thinking that way is because they were thinking like what was going to happen, which is what did happen.
eked out the most votes in Iowa and New Hampshire. But if you look at the numbers more closely, it shows the candidate hitting a ceiling. If you look at the combined percentages among the centrist candidates, they do much better than the progressives.
When you add up the totals, though, for Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Joe Biden, when you add them up last night, that's more than half the electorate backing a moderate.
Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Biden split the moderate vote with their combined percentage overwhelming that of Sanders, who got 26%.
That's right. If you just combine the votes of Buttigieg, Biden, and Klobuchar, you can beat Bernie. Now, all you have to do is find a way to genetically combine them into one candidate called the Klobuchar and Buttigieg.
And I loved it. I laughed, but they created Klobuchar.
And then every time you ask it a question, it has the same answer. What should we do about healthcare?
We must step forward into the future.
I'm from Minnesota.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
I mean, that is pretty much how Biden answers questions.
Yeah. And I forgot about that period where every single time they're like, yeah, Bernie has the most votes. But if you combine everybody else's votes, he's like in third place.
Yeah. And like Seth Meyers, I was laughing at that. I'm like, that's not how it works. But you know what? They were right and we were wrong. That is apparently how it works. Like they were kind of thinking like the DNC was going to think. And it kind of shows we were operating with a wholly wrong game plan, and they really did do just that. They convinced Klobuchar to drop out. They convinced Buttigieg to drop out, threw out all their thing behind Bernie Sanders, and I was like, you know what? These people,
that shit. They revealed that Obama was making the calls to convince people. Probably also convince them that they would get rewarded in the well, maybe Pete would get rewarded because Klobuchar is in the Senate, but that there would be a sweet prize in it for him.
Yeah. And I mean, even being in the Senate, they can still offer you jobs. Like, for example, Keisha Bottoms thought she was getting something despite being a mayor, which did not end up happening.
I can't believe those people really believe their press, that Karen Bass and Keisha Bottoms really thought they were VP candidates. I mean, it's just laughable to me. But apparently they believed it.
They really did. It was always going to be like Kamala or there's one other who was like another mayor who was like a police chief that floated. But Kamala was always like the front runner for it. Warren thought she was going to get it at one point. Buttigieg probably thought he was going to get it at one point.
Yeah, it was all so laughable. Like, I mean, like I feel like I, along with many others, miscalled the prescience of the. All you have to do is combine them. Like, when they kept pointing out that, combined, these people make more than Bernie. But I will say, even a toddler could have predicted that the whole Keisha Bottoms, Karen Bass stuff was not going to happen. And Stacey Abrams too. She was another one who was pretty naive about
that. Remember when they brought her on for the interview?
Oh yeah.
And
oh my God.
Was going to ask her at that moment. That was hilarious.
Yeah, and she could not keep the poker face. Like her face was hilarious.
How much do you think it was him like playing people and just being like, no, you got it. I got you. You'll be VP, and they're just lying.
I would love to know that. What are your thoughts, Margaret? Because I can't call it. I have no idea what part of his persona is deliberate trolling versus sundowning dementia. But
I think it's a combination of the two. I really do. They first of all, let me just say that I believe they finally came up with the right drug cocktail, and he, looked less demented. Is that a proper word?
Oh, for
demented?
sure.
As the year went
I
on.
joked that he had the drug from the movie Limitless because, they did something.
Yeah, I mean, he was always, even in his younger years, as we pointed out, he was always blurting out stuff. And do you remember the day they signed Obamacare and he was on the hot mic, heard saying to Obama, "This is a big effing deal." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So that's the real Joe Biden. That's him. And so I can see his. Well, you could see it in that meeting, the impatience and the "Who do you think you are? You're questioning me. I'm the one who's done the most for Black people ever." And so yeah, that's part of him. And I can see both things happening. I can see him being this, not very bright and also mean person, and also,
Entitled, I think, is another word that came to mind. Like
entitled,
they
and
feel entitled to not being questioned.
especially Black people. Who do you
Exactly.
think to question me? That was the subtext, clearly.
Right.
So, and this is the guy who keeps getting his dumb son, jobs, and that's all coming out. Who knows now if there's an official investigation?
I love it. We're back to bipartisanship, where both administrations can have corrupt kids.
The bridge is corrupt kids. Hey, here's something. There's a beautiful naivete I see sometimes among radicals and leftists, where I saw people tweeting like, "Wow, a lot of Biden's Black apologists have like egg on their face after seeing that civil rights leak," and I was like, that's no different than what I did to Charlemagne like a month or two before. So and they were fine, right? They shilled and acted like courtiers for him just fine after that. Like it's something beautifully touching in the naivete of thinking that these people are ever going to admit, like, what benefit comes from admitting that they're wrong? Like, he's the only game in town if the game is to get access. It's not like they can do anything else. They're locked in for 4 years.
Well, they are, but then what we need are people, leaders, or whatever prominent people, whatever title you want to give them, who need to be locked into opposition. They need to be locked into being in resistance and being for us, for all 48 million Black people, and not just for them and their friends.
I love that we have a side conversation in the chat. People are arguing who in the administration is who in the Dragon Ball Z canon. Someone said Van Jones is Piccolo, ever ready to sacrifice himself for Obama, Goku's life and reputation. These are people new to the stream. Give the Champagne Sharks audience a good appearance. Don't keep going down this road of who is who in the Dragon Ball Z pantheon in politics, please.
What is Goku? The chat needs to figure out amongst themselves which one of them is Goku. Because it's not Biden. It's not Biden.
Yeah, Biden is definitely not. Biden is Yamcha that hit a stroke of luck, I think, at this point. Yeah. but I got lucky. Someone online did the work. I'm stealing their labor, but someone did the work of making a thread of all the bits that Biden did. So they time stamped and did the thread. But I think a good thing to do before we go into the thread is maybe play the section where Charlemagne messed up on with Biden messed up with Charlemagne, because I think when you see it, it helps you realize how much of the energy is the same. You know what I mean? Like, that energy was not very different at all, and there was no reason to be surprised at all at how he behaved. So let me just pull it up real quick. I know it's not hard to find because it was very close to the end of the whole thing. Hold on, but I mean, it's like that old saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So let me find it. So right here, she comes up. Yeah, people are bringing up Yajirobe. They're making the deep cuts in the chat right now. Let's see.
But the bottom line is, the other piece is, I'm going to try to change.
Is the audio playing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Laid it out. I'll send you a copy of my plan, so you have it.
Deliver every voice?
Pardon me?
What, deliver every voice or what?
No, the plan I have is my manifesto for Black America. And particularly the portion of it that relates to how, in fact, we're going to deal with the prison system. If you are in prison,
So, he's very strident when talking to Black people, I noticed, where it's not like he's like coming from a place of please give me your vote, but wagging his finger, I always feel. But that's not quite the part. I think it's at the very end. Let me go a little further.
development of the brain. And we should wait till the studies are done. I think some.
I want to ask you about your running mate. I don't know if you saw, well, I saw the day that a news report broke that Amy Klobuchar was being vetted, and a lot of people on social media, they're not too happy about that. And it's because they want your running mate to be a Black woman. I don't know if you saw the op-ed in the Washington Post by some of the leading Black women voices in this country, and they feel since Black women are such a loyal voting bloc, and Black people saved your political life in the primaries this year, they have things they want from you, and one of them is a Black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple Black women being considered. Multiple.
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to Black media.
I can't do that to white media and Black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
Did I miss it, or is it still coming?
More questions.
I think it's still coming.
Question, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't Black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, thanks. I will come back.
All right.
I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah. I want to put that refresher before we go forward. So you guys feel free to comment on that.
I feel like every Black person is corn pop to him. The fact that he told that story at all tells you it spoke volumes about him. And everybody's corn pop with a bad dude, and he can, wrap a chain around his wrist or whatever it was he did. It feels like everybody's like that. And the scolding of Black people, we learned, was Obama any different? No.
True.
Well,
we are all corn pop. That's my feeling about Biden.
I always wonder if, the media was not so homogeneously white, how those stories might have been handled, because a lot of the cycle was a lot of white journalists being like, no, but here's what you need to understand. It's actually a touching story. And it's like, well, the fuck it is. No, it is not. But I feel like they ended up dominating the narrative about how it's empathy because he ended up becoming friends with Corn Pop and had like or something about like him standing his ground and proving to Corn Pop he was not trying to be too antagonistic, but just like a bunch of nonsense narratives that otherwise wouldn't have flown. I think if I don't know if the media was just so like well off and white and isolated from like real life of a lot of people.
True.
Yeah, 100% agree. And you know what? Let me pull up this other thing. Brianna Wright, she luckily tweeted this whole thread out, and I am going on faith that she has the right clips. I think she does. So she put Joe Biden disrespecting prominent civil rights leaders, a thread. Starting strong with, if it doesn't count for y'all, to the hell with y'all. He was speaking about the concerns of not having enough Black people in his administration. Mm-hmm. And let me know if the sound is working.
But it's like when I named her, well.
Is the sound working?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
But it's like when I named her, well, I don't know if that counts. I'm not so sure. Well, if it doesn't count for y'all, well, the hell with y'all. But because it's real. It's real.
Oh, by the way, if you guys want me to stop at any time to comment on what he's saying, you guys don't have to wait for the clip to finish. Just start talking and I'll pause it.
So all I'm saying is look at us, judge us based on what we do. You're going to see more coming your way. And not only that, within the White House as well. Cedric is the best. Cedric's been with me from the beginning. And Cedric is going to be overseeing a great deal of this, and not all his responsibility, but he's in every single meeting. He's an assistant to the president. He's in every single meeting in the White House, period. And
I feel like he's buffering sometimes. Like what was that period thing? That was crazy.
so what we're going to be doing here is making sure that we have diverse hiring, not only and for the main cabinet position and the sub-cabinet positions, but down the line.
It's
going to
buffering
make a
again.
big difference, and within the White House as well. Assistant to the president, there's only 6 of those slots. It matters. And by the way,
So yeah, that's the end of that first clip. But that was in response, like Brianna said, to asking about, not having enough black people in the administration. And I mentioned this last night on Katie Halper's live stream, but there's an irony to him bringing up Cedric Richmond and kind of punting to him and saying, "Hey, look, here's this black guy. He's the one who's like." I felt a lot of that was kind of putting him on the spot, as in, I put this black guy here as a shield. So, any problems you have, he's really important. He's this, he's that. So yell at the black guy. He's kind of put him there to me to be a lightning rod for a lot of the maybe less than racially enlightened things that Biden wants to do.
Yeah, as we were talking about the other night with Katie Halper, this move to have him be put in charge of conservative outreach, in charge of corporate outreach for the climate movement, really does leave him as a lightning rod for criticisms about Biden's climate action, especially because Biden's not going to be using executive action. If you're not going to use executive action, what are you going to do about climate change? What are you going to do about inequities and how the existing solutions to climate change that the Senate will allow will manifest?
Yeah, it's kind of setting him up as a scapegoat for a lot of things, I feel.
Well, they're cover for him, but they know the deal.
Yep.
That Cedric Richmond is totally corporate,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody like Al Sharpton, he's just, to me, he's like I don't know, comic relief, frankly. But he does his thing. He gives cover to Democratic presidents. So yeah, he is telling people, and because their demands were so lame. Then if you just say, well, we want to make sure black people have these jobs, then of course that lets him off the hook. He can just point to said black guy,
yep,
and dismiss any of the other needs that should have been brought before him in that meeting.
And also because he's pointing out the black guys in all the meetings, and also that this black guy is in charge of public outreach, Office of Public Outreach, and has a say in all this stuff. They kind of realize that a lot of times, and this is true, sometimes to our detriment as black people, is that we tend to really focus on the sellout who's black more than the person above them who is really making the calls. I think he's offering him up as, this is the guy that you need to be beating up on if you don't like what I'm doing. Plus he's black like you. Hey, I'm white, you shouldn't expect that much from me, but this guy's a black guy. And this is something that I thought was very underreported. We brought this up last night, and also Edward just brought it up, but at the same time that he's holding up this guy as the face of why things can't be done for black people, Biden is also using the same guy, Cedric Richmond, as the face of his reaching out to white conservatives, and let's be honest, Trump voters. And Bloomberg reported December 7th, Biden administration will create position to reach conservatives. Cedric Richmond, a Louisiana congressman, will lead the effort. Richmond wants to connect with, quote, people who didn't vote for us, end quote. And I'm very skeptical that Richmond had a lot of agency and autonomy in coming up with this. Like he was just came to Biden and was like, listen up, Joe. This is really bothering me by these Trump voters. Not like, he was picked to fall on this sword. You know what I mean? Like this is not gonna go over good. You're gonna be the guy that has to sell us. You as a black guy being the face of reaching out to white Trump voters looks magnanimous versus me as old Jim Crow Joe being the face of reaching out to white conservatives, just like we're going to use you as the face of doing nothing for black people.
Sure. It's first of all, it's just laughable to me. All the Democratic Party does is reach out to conservatives.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, okay, well, this is pretty redundant, but this is not for our benefit, obviously. It's the point of it is to tell, in case progressives didn't know, you have no voice, none. They haven't even. I mean, I know he hasn't finished yet, but there isn't going to be one person who can, even by any stretch of the imagination, be called a conservative who's going to get a high position in this administration. It is not going to happen. And by the way, and none of them have agency. These people who do get these jobs with Biden, none of them are independent actors. That's not the nature of the way it works.
And it's not the nature of how Biden, clearly shows himself viewing black disagreement. We've seen multiple times how he views black disagreement, and it is not with a very open heart and open ears. It's just not how it goes.
Right.
And some key quotes. I apologize for anybody who saw us read this on Katie Halper last night, but it's unavoidable. Right now, I'm trying to set up the office, and I'm actually looking at establishing a position that reaches out to conservatives. And he's not even using terms like we. He's saying I, like this is all his idea.
Right.
Because it's about moving forward. Here he says we, but I think he means we as a country. We cannot stay where we are, Richmond said during the Wall Street Journal CEO Council on Monday night. So basically when it comes to, he's shielding the administration. He's either using I as in me, or saying that he's doing it on behalf of the whole country. That's the only time he uses we. But Biden is very shielded in all this. And then he adds, he said the office's goal was to forge connections with all Americans, regardless of their political affiliation. Quote, we're not elected just to help Democrats or urban cities or minorities, end quote. He said, quote, we were elected to help this entire country, and that means reaching out to conservatives. That means reaching out to rural areas. That means reaching out to people who didn't vote for us. And I just want to get you guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, John Kerry, the climate envoy, talks a lot about this. He did this thing called Campaign Zero, World War Zero, something like that, where it's like he wanted to have 3 million conversations in 2020 with conservatives and liberals and influencers, millennials and boomers about climate change. And he has like people who support fracking, like John Kasich, and people who don't support it, like maybe Stacey Abrams as an example. But his solution or his idea is to basically water down the horizon of climate change or addressing climate change or climate justice, right, by incorporating and centering the concerns of conservatives and Republicans, which is also going to be what Cedric is going to be doing in his office, in his role as the liaison for the corporations and for the conservatives, and as the head of the Office of Public Engagement.
I want to ask you guys too, how have you guys seen the reporting on this civil rights the civil rights Zoom leak, or the outreach to conservatives thing? Because part of the problem I have sometimes is I feel like, and you guys might not be great people to ask either, because I think you guys are probably similar to me in that we're kind of plugged in. We're very into politics. We
Right.
are into the inside baseball of media. Like, so for example, I asked my mom, like my mom watches MSNBC all day. Let me ask her, and she kind of didn't really know about the Zoom call, or what little she kind of got about it was very much mischaracterized, that I think she kind of got the April Ryan version of the thing. And I want to know if you guys had family members or friends or just like a lot of normie people who have talked to you about this, or like what's your sense of it, to the extent you can get a sense of it.
Well, I don't believe it was reported much in corporate media, which is where most people still get their information. So you have to be, you've got to be one of these people who's plugged into independent media, who's plugged into social media, a Twitter follower, to really get the detail about this. It's not been as big a story as it should be. And so yeah, and I find it hard, frankly, to talk to people who, most of my friends and relatives are the same way. They always watch MSNBC and, worship all these horrible people. So yeah, I think if you're not plugged into independent media, you don't know much about this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. With my family, my mom doesn't really have the time to watch the news, so most of her updates come from me when she gets back from work, because she's a nurse, and then my dad is like plugged in, but like to CNN and MSNBC. So I have to.
My mom.
I have to work on him, like at the end of the days, we'll talk a bit for an hour or two, on and off about news stories and what he may have missed, because I'm like plugged in all the goddamn time. But there's also a balance, because sometimes, I don't know, there's also like, by having or relying solely on, cable news, right? There's also a gulf in terms of narratives, right? Like I can be focused on a bunch of news cycles that may have only been online, and he be focused on news cycles that may have only been on cable. So there's also like a bridge, and like trying to figure out, okay, like what is MSNBC actually talking about? Like, are they even talking about this anymore? Are they onto some other thing, or are they onto some new debate, or are they onto some new, like very small Democrat world event happen, and that's for some reason on the airwaves but not on the internet? And that's always a weird game to play.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's happened to me with visiting my mom. Like when I visit my mom, and I go over there, help her out with stuff and different things, she has MSNBC and CNN on as white noise, basically just on all day. She's retired. But one thing to her credit is I don't think she really buys into the Democratic Party as some like religion or saviors of black people. Thankfully, she just, it's just the easiest thing to watch, if you want to know what's going on, so it's just easy. She's not going to get a Twitter account and, subject herself to that. That's never going to happen. So it makes sense. But when I go over there, and I'll be like putting together a piece of furniture for her, and she just has it playing on the background. Like after like 10 minutes, I'll get horrified, because I'm like, oh my God, this is actually what is being reported right now. Because on Twitter, it's like a parallel universe. There's a whole different horrible thing being reported about the media. So I remember there was something going on Twitter that I was like, oh man, the DNC looks horrible right now. This is really going to be a blow to the DNC and also whoever becomes president next. But then when I was at my mom's house, MSNBC had like a book coming out by an ex-Trump guy. I forgot who it was at the time, but I mean, it's happened so many times. I'm sure you can take your pick. An ex-Trump guy, their book coming out, and what are the most salacious parts of the book? And it just had like the same 12 people on loop, just talking about this all day long. What the new Trump expose book was, and what it portends for his connections to Russia. Just
Yeah.
Russia.
You could hit it like you could go into a coma and come out, and it'd be the same thing. It's like one book is called Courage, another is Fear, another's Hope, another's like Concern. Like they're all the same shit, and it's all from people who like, I ran the detention camps, and I I separated children from their families, but I was horrified by what I saw in the final months of the Trump administration.
yeah. Everything is welcome to the resistance.
Right.
No matter what you did, welcome to the resistance. It's all good.
The Mick resistance, as I call them. I mean, everybody loves a winner, so nobody's going to be a proud Trumper from here on in. It's just going to be a bunch of scams like that Lincoln Project, which.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't even get me started on that one. But please, for the people who don't know, can you just explain I think most people do, but I like to pretend that neophytes are stumbling on this. So by all means, can you break down the Lincoln Project before you continue?
Sure. It was a way for certain Republicans to promote being a Republican by pretending to be liberal. So they just said they were never Trumpers. Trump was a disgrace. Trump was a traitor. Trump was this. Trump was that. And this Lincoln Project, which was this amazing marketing effort, they had this very high quality videos throughout the campaign, and Twitter was one of their main platforms to use, talking about how Trump was so terrible, and they raised, I think it was $70 million, some amazing amount of money that all came from Democrats. And these people are all Republicans. And one of the founders, it turned out, was waving a Confederate flag or something at some point in his life. So, that's what happens when everything was about Trump. So anybody could run a con by claiming to be an anti-Trumper when they weren't. I feel like Democrats were like the biggest marks in the country over the last 4 years.
Yeah, the guy who, like, one of the lead faces of the Lincoln Project is the same guy who cut the Jeremiah Wright ad and used to brag on Twitter about how he used it to, extract pound of flesh from Obama during the 2008 campaign. Has been saying racist shit on the internet for a long time, especially about Middle Easterners, people from the Middle East, Muslims, anything, anyone who's just like is vaguely brown, right? He's also the Confederate thing, like you're talking about. There's like pictures of him where he's like on vacations with his family, and they have like a Confederate flag cooler, and they're all like celebrating and hanging out with it. And it's like, okay, Democrats don't really, care. I remember I had something. I tweeted something about it that had gone viral, and I used to get a bunch of resistance people being like, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," and I'm like, "Bro, if you're that guy's your friend, please don't talk to me. How are you gonna be friends with someone who's got a Confederate flag in their home? Come on, man."
Yeah.
And also, why does that never apply to, like, say, Bernie Sanders? Like, he hates Trump too, but somehow
talk to us, right? To tell us.
Yeah, exactly. And something else with the whole Lincoln Project thing is like this, like so many different levels of scumbag involved, because there's scumbags that you mentioned, but also for their online engagement team, they were using the CEO of this influencer firm. Can't believe I'm in an era where that's a real thing. Influencer firm, Fuck Jerry, right? Where these guys are notorious for stealing memes, like. They are able to go viral and be very good at forcing virality by just stealing content from a whole bunch of other influencers and then just spamming, using their connections and money to spam whatever. So these people were also responsible for helping inflict the Fire Festival on the world, and they teamed up. Sorry, what's on?
I said I forgot about that.
Yeah. So these Fuck Jerry guys. If you ever Google Fuck Jerry, like everything that'll come up is about stolen content. with these guys. So they're even in every aspect and level of the Lincoln Project, there is just scummy people involved.
Jerry was also with Bloomberg, right? Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Meme 2020. They did that with Bloomberg. Yeah, so fuck Jerry was throwing in the lot with Bloomberg, and they're not good at originality, but I mean, I guess they are good at stealing from the best and and weaponizing the internet, because they did a great job with Lincoln Project and helping them go viral and all this stuff. And there was a study that came out. It was two stories that came out. One was how much the Lincoln Project made when the smoke cleared, and it was a ton of money. But the second thing was there was a study that came out that showed the Lincoln Project had no effect on changing voters.
That's true.
The
That's
best-
true. I mean, this idea that there were these Republicans who didn't like Trump was just absurd. But so great is the level of denial among liberals and the shallowness, frankly, of them, that they would fall for this.
Or that there were moderates that were being
Yes, there's some moderate Republicans. I'm like, no, they're not.
Right.
No, they're Democrats now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that too. Right.
Yeah, there's all these swing voters who have been brought over. No, that is not the case. And also, I'm not being rude to the chat tonight. If anybody's been donating, much appreciated. But I have like 3 screens going on, so I can't look. So a general all-purpose shout out to anyone who has been donating. If you've been saying something funny in the chat, just picture me laughing. I'm laughing in my spirit. But here we go. Back to this. Let me make sure it's on the screen. I have got to get assistance like Katie. Here we go. Brianna continues. Biden responding to Derek Johnson about the concerns that there has not been enough progress in the people who have been appointed thus far. So that is the context for this clip. And as usual, if the sound is not playing, let me know.
Because the success of this administration will be the ability of the Senate to confirm your nominees. We have an opportunity here, and we want to make sure we seize upon this opportunity and allowing for the input necessary. 10 more appointments to go. A lot of people in our community are getting a little anxious because they are not seeing enough of the progress they thought they would have seen at this point. Let's not disappoint them, and let's not get to a place where voters in Georgia begin to second guess.
Okay, let me respond. I've got to go. Let me respond. There's a lot to respond.
First, he said I got to go.
Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay, number one.
Yeah, so to straight up tell him, first I got to go, then you shouldn't be disappointed.
Corn pop.
It was on the tip of his tongue. I know it.
Yeah. Then Biden belittling Sherilyn Ifill and Kristen Clark. And I love that Brianna keeps tagging them. Like, can you respond to this? Which, of course, of course they're going to ignore it. But I like that she did that. But
it's really interesting. Also, I think Brianna brought up this point about how, even when you watch the video and the clips, it's clear that there's like attention and they're trying to make an ask, and he's like, shut up, yeah, listen. And then the next day they're all like, oh no, it was actually really great and we loved him. We've always loved him and we've always supported our dear leader. And the clip is misrepresentation of the mood and the vibes in the room.
And they almost have to, because they don't want to get pegged as being the leak.
Right. Yeah. I wonder who was the leak.
I know, right? I feel like that doesn't get discussed enough.
Then there's the theory that Biden leaked it himself. We'll never be able to prove, but that it was like his sister soldier moment, and he or someone on his team are the ones who did it.
They do need one of those, right?
Yeah, and that'd be funny too if everyone's looking at the participants on the civil rights side is doing it, and other people think it's Biden. I think it's always funny the third option of Kamala just saying, "I got to become president one day. I've got to just see the
up."
Yeah, exactly. I've got to take away his shine so people get more excited about me taking over. I just find that possibility. But I thought this was on stage on the screen when I was reading before, but so I'll repeat it again. It actually wasn't on the screen, but Biden belittling Sherilyn Ifill and Kristen Clark, and just gonna play
the
that.
original Jim Crow to get where this guy extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years as a United States Senator. Before, Sherilyn, you were even involved. I got it, and I started off, I'm much older than you. That's why I got involved in politics. The assault on the black vote and voting rights across the nation has never been more ugly than it is today. You got to go all the way back to the original Jim Crow to get where this guy is.
And he wasn't great during the original Jim Crow either. So why would you even invoke that?
Right. You know, his long record is opposition to integration. That's what it is.
Yeah. So that's not something funny about saying, it hasn't been this bad since the original Jim Crow. I'm like, you're one of the people that made the original Jim Crow that bad. Like,
my favorite. Well, there's so many great Biden quotes, aren't there? But after the crime bill, what did he say? Well, we got the death penalty for everything but jaywalking, or something along those lines.
He straight up said that. Yeah, he was bragging about the crime bill that had the death penalty for everything but jaywalking, but as a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it says it all.
Yeah. Now he's
largest.
Sorry, go on.
No, but now he's like Mr. Civil Rights, which is.
People have been carrying water and doing so much revisionism for him that he actually seems to be believing the revisionism now.
Yeah, why not?
This voting right, Kristen, my operation, 1,000 lawyers, bigger than you or anybody else out there on voting rights. 1,000 in this campaign. Not a joke. 1,000.
We said like bigger than you. Like, what did that mean?
I don't know. I think it's interesting that he actually points up, like knowing she's above him and he's looking up at her when he's really not.
Like the Brady Bunch.
Yes, it is.
Opening scene, looking up in
bigger than you. It's like, I don't know. It's like a Bidenism, outburst. Yeah. It's just typical of him.
Right.
Oh, Biden telling Melanie Campbell that he doesn't think she read a document because he doesn't think that she read a document she was speaking about because she disagreed with him.
Family and medical leave.
Yes, it does.
Lastly, what's happening as we speak around the recovery pack that does not include, unless something happened since we've been talking, paid family and medical leave.
Yes, it does. No, it does include. It does include paid family medical leave.
But doesn't have enough.
Well, it has more than. I don't think you've read it. It has significant.
Okay. Yeah, I've been reading it, and I think something may have happened since, but it was 1.8 million was going to take for 3 months. Billion, rather.
Yeah. So.
Well, it was like my first thought, my visceral reaction to this was it was like the plantation owner telling the field hands how lucky they were. That was my my initial reaction, my gut reaction upon seeing these clips.
Yeah, I hear that. Or also Malcolm X's speech about that, right? Especially when I had that Malcolm X avatar person coming in my DM thinking about like the house Negro who would pray for the master if they got sick and said, "Oh, we sick," and and just the way in which I don't know, I think some of them maybe in their heart of hearts mean well, and that they're trying to get Biden to lean a certain way, and they have limitations, but others it's like, come on, like especially after the full-fronted apologies or public responses where they're like nothing went wrong, like that forum should have been a chance for them to push a little bit more fiercely because it was a closed space, and instead it got like a lot of quibbling responses from someone who then had the audacity to talk down to them, and they just took it,
Yeah. Someone said I've done more for black people than shea butter. That's coming that.
You can actually say that. Maybe you
I
should,
can hear Biden just being like, "I've done more than Cantor. You don't know that. I
You
made
know
it.
what?
I made it."
Whoever wrote that tweet should try to apply to be a speechwriter for Biden. I think he would hire you. You would totally appreciate that. He'd like, you know what? Maybe I have done that. It would be like April Ryan not getting the joke. He would probably think it's a great.
oh my God.
Okay, so this one is. Let me make sure I'm okay. So this one is him telling them all he's the quote only white boy you know who did it. Period. Weird for him to call himself a white boy. Like he's a senior, but when it comes to not shying away from calling out racism.
You've never seen me shy away. In the middle of the debate, I called him a racist. In the middle of the debate with him, I took on white supremacists. I'm the guy that took on every single time somebody was threatened in this country. The only white boy you know who did it, period, out there. Every single time.
Also, that's kind of crazy. The only white person who stood up, who called Trump, like Trump was the safest target to call a racist. Even Republicans were willing to call him a racist. That's a weird thing.
So look, all I'm saying here is, guys and ladies, we're on the same exact page. The same exact page.
And as usual, even as a clip is playing, if you guys want to say something, always feel free. But I'm sorry, will you say something, Edward?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that someone should like cut in right there the clip from Charlemagne where he's like, "We're all on the same page," and then he goes like, "You ain't black," and then and then they come back to the meeting.
Biden speaking as if he's doing them and all black people a favor by running against a racist son of a gun.
If I can't say what I believe, I didn't want to run this time. I ran this time because of the racist son of a gun who was president of the United States of America. That's why I ran.
Oh, so he ran to
ain't
save
worth
black
a
people.
Job if I can't say what
I thought
Wow, I didn't
care about y'all.
interesting is I didn't want to run this time, but he had a funny way of showing it. He did. Anyway.
So that is crazy. So basically, he was gonna sit at home and run, but he saw black people were in danger of being ruled by a racist, and he had to be like, no, they need a better racist, and that's me. And more power to him. I feel grateful. I don't know about you guys. So yeah, she ends it with the list of everyone who was on the call: Mark Morial, Derek Johnson, Melanie Campbell, Kristen Clark, Vanita Gupta, Sherilyn Eiffel, and Reverend Al Sharpton. So I think where I'd like to end this live stream, and thanks again so much to you guys for coming out and doing with me, and also thanks to everyone who is watching and also donated or just shared this with people. I'd like to ask you, who do you think was notably good or bad during this call as far as advocating for black people and bringing up good issues or responding to Biden?
The women were the best.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
And if somebody on the call leaked it, it was one of the women.
I agree with that too. Hold on, Isaac K said, "I didn't choose the presidency. The presidency chose me." Yeah, it's definitely. So, any I don't know if Edward, you had an answer to that question.
Oh no, I feel the same way. I think it's very clear that everyone else, all the men in the room were like being very quiet and asked maybe one or two questions that could be read as not even confrontational, just like, are you sure you want to do that? Like it's the Georgia question, for example. And I think I don't know. One thing I still wonder, like, why even in a closed space like this, there wasn't even more of an ask. These people are face to face with someone who is going to be the president. They should, if they really view themselves as having delivered him or helped deliver a victory for him, make more concrete asks, and instead it was more like listening and then getting talked down to, and then being like, "Oh, okay, thank you for
Well,
talking."
but that's what they do. That's their job. They, I would think if I wanted the president, and if I could get in a meeting with the president-elect, I would have talked to people about this is what we're going to ask for. I would have had a much bigger ask, but they're not serious about that. Their role is to give cover for him. And so the lack of seriousness is what came out.
I saw some in the chat say that we didn't play the
biracial clip. Yup. I just saw that and I was like, oh my God, he's right. I would have gotten my streaming license revoked if I didn't do that. Thank you, iSound Info. And I'm pulling that up as we speak. Yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't in the thread. You're right. That is like one of the best things. Not one of
It was
the
so
best
funny.
thing.
It was like crazy Biden.
It's especially because he was like, I know I'm not supposed to say this. I know I'm not supposed to say it, and you're not gonna like me saying it, and then just fucking says it.
Yeah, and I think it kind of shows how he thinks, because to me, I think it's kind of like it must disturb him to see them. Like, like why is that in your head as something so notable and important? And it makes me think that it's part of the racial jungle. Like, when he sees those biracial commercials, he's like, there goes that racial jungle I was talking about all that time ago. Like, that was very weird to me. But yeah, thank you, iSound Info, and I'm pulling it up as we speak. That is, this one looks this version looks kind of weird, but it's the only clip I could find of it. So let me just use it. And he gives us a particular number, like 4 out of 7 commercials are biracial, and it's like, actually, no, that's not the case at all. Like, where'd you even get that? I shared the wrong tab. Hold on. Okay, here it is. I haven't played this yet. Hopefully, the quality is good. And he interrupted his own vice president elect apparently for this. Biden interrupting Harris in a video call with civil rights leaders to say things are better because we have biracial commercials. And here we go.
Gesture, but instead about work that actually has an impact on the people. And so I appreciate the president-elect making the commitment that he has made for access and accountability. And of course, you should expect no less. But it is good to know that that's how we're going to proceed, and that at this early date, even before the inauguration, that this has happened. And so let's just come up with a plan and a roadmap for how we.
The sad part about this is she's clearly trying to pull his fat out of the fire, and it's like he just breaks free and jumps right back into it. Like,
go.
Yeah.
Angry. I want to say one more thing. I am incredibly optimistic. Let me tell you why. I'm incredibly optimistic because society is changing. The Z generation and young millennials are changing. Now, you're not going to maybe agree with what I'm about to say.
He said Z generation instead of Generation Z. I just find that funny.
Yes, he did.
Take a look at what is happening. 15 years ago, could you turn on the television and see 3 or 4 out of 7 commercials be biracial commercials? What do you think, guys? Huh? What do you think?
I like that nobody answered.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's my favorite part that nobody answered. Thank
Of
goodness.
course not. It was like, you know what? That's too much. I can't do any more today. It's like, sorry, Joe.
Oh my God. And yeah, I'm gonna just open it up to you guys to share any final thoughts. And again, thanks to you guys for coming out, and also thanks to everyone who donated. Oh, and also one last thing for people who donate. You can donate through the super chat or the super stickers, but I know for some reason some people don't like that. So for people who prefer other ways, you can donate through Venmo or Cash App, Champagne Sharks, or you can do PayPal, champagnesharks@gmail.com. So just throwing that out there. And yeah, so you guys can just give your final thoughts on just any of this.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. But I think this is a harbinger of what's to come. This is it. This is what we're going to see. We saw the real Joe Biden. We saw the real Black misleadership political class. So this is, and I'm very happy, whoever leaked this, I'm glad that they did, because it exposed so much. It exposed people and exposed the way the system runs.
Right. Yeah, Sam, thanks for having me on. And I think, just to echo that sentiment, not only are we going to see, this, but we're also going to see like more defenses of this, especially now that we have like Obama on the prowl, now that he's been activated like a sleeper agent. He's going to be providing cover for Biden from the left, from the right. I mean, because he's really good. He's really adept at speaking to or using and leveraging the nostalgia that people have for him, with like that message he had during his presidency about, just being a little bit more patient for something happening around the corner. And I think as Biden sundowns and shows his, his real hand and his desire to not really change much, we're just gonna be bombarded with this shit.
Oh, for sure. I think so, big time. And the final thought I'll say about the interracial commercial thing is I remember when I used to argue with white racists online, and something that I really noticed about arguing with white racists is a lot of times they think what disturbs them the most about what they see as Black progress, like what they think is the biggest lost ground in terms of Black progress, they project onto Black people as being the thing that they're the most proud of. So I remember I was arguing with somebody about something online, and the guy was like, you can't tell me you don't feel pride or you feel great when you see a TV show or a commercial and the Black man has a white woman as a partner, and you can't tell me that doesn't give you pride as a Black man. I was like, wait, so because you have these white genocide fantasies and you just think that that Black people are just breeding out white people and stuff, like you actually think like in civil rights meetings, NAACP meetings, like that's what they're behind closed doors, like, yes, another interracial pairing on the screen, like that Banana Republic poster is really. And as I realized, wow, these people really think that we're on the other side of this, celebrating the same white genocide stuff that they're complaining about all day. And that's what was like a red flag to me of Joe Biden saying that to those guys and asking them to chime in with their happiness. It made me think, wow, he's that guy who's actually alarmed by interracial commercials. To me, the fact that he expects them to be so happy about it.
Yeah, like we gave you this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a huge thing.
It's a huge sacrifice, like
yeah.
So, before we go, please, guys, tell people where to find you for people who missed the beginning of it, like where to find you on social media, where you write at, and any other thing you want to plug.
Sure, you can find me blackagendareport.com every Wednesday. Twitter, Freedom Ride Blog is my handle, and I'm on Patreon, Margaret Kimberley.
And I'm Big Black Jacobin on Twitter. Also, my podcast is Machine Kills Pod, and you can find us on Patreon, This Machine Kills as well. And my writings is also at Vice and Motherboard, where I write about tech, labor, and the gig economy.
Awesome. Thanks again. And everyone who's in the audience, thanks for joining us. We will do this again soon. And I'd like to have you guys back on at some time. Next time that Biden does something crazy like this, which I'm sure won't be, we won't have to wait too long for it.
No.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks again.